Excellent. Hi, I'm Najmah Salam. Thank you so much for attending my talk, How to Position Your Game Like a Pro. I am the pro in question. So let's see if this is gonna work. Oh, sorry,
If you use the down arrow key, it should take you to the next.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Yes. So, like I said, I'm Najmah Salam. You can call me Naj. I call myself a creative artificer and marketing alchemist, which is just a nerdy way of saying I do creative production and marketing for games and tech. I have over 16 years of marketing experience in branding, product, and lifecycle, which means email and CRM if you're nasty. So I directed a visual novel called The Ouroboros Express. It's free, which is the best price for a game, I think. And it's on Steam and itch.io, so you can go and play it today if you want. I am the ex-head of brand at Inter Games, and most recently I've been a producer at Panda Cat Games. Check out Spirits of Heartwood. Right, so I'm going to paraphrase this quote a little. It's a long-ass quote, but I want to get some audience participation. I want you to guess when this quote was written. So there's television, commercial, cable and pay. There's radio, AM and FM. There's outdoor, posters and billboards. There are newspapers, morning, evening, daily, weekly, and Sunday. Well, you see the rest. So can I get a guess from the audience? How long ago do you think this quote was written? What do you think? You, man over there. Yeah. That I definitely know.
2 days ago.
2 days ago?
Yeah.
All right, okay. How about you over there? How long ago?
1992.
1992. Oh, specific. Okay. How about you back there? Okay, how about you? 2010. All right, okay. So if you guess 50 years ago, you would be on the money. Two mad lads named Al Reese and Jack Trout, advertisers who recognized that society was being barraged with communication even back then. And if you think about it, this was even before home computers as we know them, let alone, you know, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, all the different ways I forget to reply back to my friends. So they literally wrote the book on positioning, which is a way to cut through the noise. April Dunford wrote a book called Obviously Awesome, and she expanded upon this work in a modern context. And it's a great book. I definitely recommend checking this book out if you want to learn more about positioning. I adapted a lot of her work for this presentation. And I really like her definition, which is positioning is the act of deliberately defining how you are the best at something that a defined market cares a lot about. Ooh, okay. Right, so confession, even after 16 years of experience, marketing still feels a bit like throwing spaghetti at a wall. There's a lot going on, the world's changing constantly, and the difference often comes down to how much spaghetti and how much wall you have. So what does positioning give you? It gives you more focus, less wasted effort, right? A lot of you are working for indie games, so you often don't have enough budget for people or budget or literally anything, right, exactly. So positioning helps you reduce that effort and focus it. It helps you articulate what your game does best to its biggest fans. And in other words, at least you know you're making the right spaghetti for the right wall. Yay! All right, another exercise. I want you to throw out some games that you think of when I say the following. So which games do you think of when I say you take care of a farm and have love interests? Anybody want to take a step? Stardew Valley. Anything else? Okay, yep. Okay, yeah, brilliant. All right, how about you fight your way through randomly generated levels? I just heard, blah. Great, yeah. How about unlock and explore levels in a 2D environment? Okay? Yep, all of those, absolutely. So if you thought of multiple games for each example, how those games relate to each other is positioning. And importantly, the first game that you thought of positioned itself the best in your minds. Okay, hopefully that illustrates it. Cool. Now, without positioning, people might say the following, oh, it's just another cozy game. Or, which roguelike game was that one again? Or, is that the game with the thing? Which is something that I'm saying more and more now as I age. So your game will be positioned whether you want it to or not by your players. And it's really important for you to do it deliberately. Take control of that narrative. You're all storytellers in here, right? So yeah. Now, we're going to go through these steps to position a game. We're going to understand the players, look at competitive alternatives, look at the unique attributes or features of your game, look at the value of those attributes, look at the target market or the people that we're marketing to, the market category, and most importantly, bundle all that work up into next steps. Now, before you begin, you want to form your positioning team, the Avengers of positioning, if you would. So it's a mistake to just leave this to your marketers. You want everybody in the team who make key decisions about the game, your directors, your producers, your writers, your narrative designers, people who have a say in what the form of the game should be. Next, you want to establish terms and definitions. Why is positioning so important? What is positioning? What is marketing? Who are we? What year is it? No, so you want to ensure your team understand what positioning is and why it's important, and get that buy-in from the team as well. And finally, let go of baggage. It's good advice for life, good advice for positioning, right? So you want to leave behind your team's prior understanding of what your game is, because what you're doing in this exercise is you're breaking apart your game, you're deconstructing it, and then you're building it back up again. Now, for example case study, we are making a fictional game. Congratulations, we are in a fictional studio making Panic at the Dungeon. It is a horror rhythm action game. Now, first we're going to understand our players. First, you want to define your best fit players, right? Your ideal players. You want to observe and focus on your most engaged players, or ideally play testers, because you want to be doing this work before you launch, ideally. Then you want to find patterns. What makes your ideal players happy? What keeps them coming back for more? And notice the emphasis on ideal players, not a whole group of people. And finally, you want to create a player persona, which is a profile of a singular, fictional person that best represents your ideal player. Now, thankfully, someone out there a lot smarter than me has already got a really great resource. I highly recommend it. Go to gamesuserresearch.com. They have a resource called Define Your Players, and it even comes ready with a template that you can use to make a player persona. Right, when you've got that, we're going to look at competitive alternatives. If your game didn't exist, what are your players doing instead? So you can look at our cool game. They will look at the direct competitors, which are similar games with same genre, features, price, quality, a lot of overlap, a lot of similarities with your game. You'll also want to look at indirect competitors as well, which is probably games with different features, maybe different gameplay altogether, but you can imagine the exact same player base playing their games. Now, note, just because I use the word competitors doesn't mean you have to fight them to the death, right? You don't have to fight your competitors. There are actually really fun opportunities to join forces and do some cross-marketing. And what could this look like? Well, it could look like maybe game bundles, maybe social media takeovers, character cameos. Maybe you can draw each other's characters in each other's games, very cute. Maybe there's streaming events that you both can do where you stream each other's games. I really think the world is your oyster when it comes to thinking of fun cross-marketing opportunities. Now note, I said if your game didn't exist, what are your players doing instead, and not what are your players playing instead. Because, feel free to boo me when I say this, video games are not a necessity to human life, to say my food, water, and shelter is. I'm sorry. So not only do you have to look at your direct and indirect competitors, you have to look at the other things taking up your ideal players' hard-earned disposable income and attention, right? So films, TV, books, music. Looking at this crowd, probably LARP, right? Warhammer, pondering their orbs, literally anything else. Basically what I'm saying is that have some self-awareness about the importance of your game to your players' lives, okay? All right, so let's take a look at unique attributes. What features or capabilities do you have that alternatives do not? Is it something about the mechanics? Is it something about the art, the narrative? Is there something interesting about the enemy, big lady? Is there something interesting about the gameplay loop? You want to isolate these key features and make up a table that looks something like this. Don't worry about the empty columns for now, we'll get into that. And you want to take a look at the unique attributes your competitors don't have as well. So for Panic at the Dungeon, I made executive decisions, sorry. So we have an enemy that stalks your character, we have couch co-op, and we have rhythm action. Disclaimer, I originally put these things together as a goofy bit, but my friend Jonas pointed out that Crypt of the Necrodancer exists, so yeah. So you want to take note of the attributes that make your players say, wow, I've never seen that before. Now we're going to look at the value of these attributes. Remember the table from 5 seconds ago? So we're going to look at the features, benefits, and values. I'm going to break these down really quickly. So a feature, we know, something your game does or has. A benefit is what does the feature unlock for your players? And the values, how does this benefit map to a player's desire? So let's say for Panic at the Dungeon, one of the things is couch co-op. Awesome. This unlocks the ability to work with other players and screw them over to win. And the value is that you can win as a team or be the last player standing, get bragging rights, have that chaotic play that we love with our friends. If any of you have played Overcooked, you probably have fallen out with people over it. So there you go. So you feature, benefit, and value. Then you go into target market. Or in other words, who cares a lot about the value your game offers? Now we're going to look at the value that you have extrapolated or pulled out from the features, benefits, and values table. And you're going to think about who cares a lot about these values, right? So we're probably looking at people who love horror games for Panic at the Dungeon, people who love that chaotic play with friends, and people who love that flow state you get into when you play rhythm action games. And probably a really great soundtrack as well. Next, you want to draw connections and find themes. If I'm looking at this now, I think there's probably something really cool around like balancing focus, chaos to survive. There's something there. But let's park this for now because we're going to talk about the market category. Which context will your game stand out in? Which category will your game's features, benefits, and values shine? So we've already established that Panic at the Dungeon has this like horror twist and there's chaotic play with friends, very cool. Balance of focus and chaos and rhythm games of getting that flow state to a banging soundtrack. But is it a horror game? Is it a rhythm game? Is it a co-op game? There's different vibes and slightly different target audience depending on what you decide to lean in on in the marketing. So a horror game, first and foremost, with some rhythm action and co-op play, sounds kind of different to a rhythm action game, first and foremost, with some horror flavor, and also there's co-op play. Or how about this is first and foremost a party game, a co-op game, and it's got like horror flavor to it and some rhythm action, right? There's going to be slightly different people who are going to be attracted to these different ways of phrasing your game. Uh-oh, it's time to showcase Panic at the Dungeon. That came quickly. So we're going to choose the best way to communicate our game in the right context. At the Uber Mega Blood Gore Fest Showcase 2026, I'm going to assume that this is a horror showcase, right? So what we're going to lean in on is the rhythm action bit, because we know all the games here are horror. We don't need to belabor that point. Let's focus on the stuff that makes the game shine in this particular context. How about the Indies Are Cool showcase? It's probably a wide, broad variety of games across many different genres. So we might decide, okay, well, we think our game is a horror game first and foremost because there's expectations that come with horror and we want to attract the right audience. Brilliant. And the Cozy Game Showcase, why would you? Don't do that. That doesn't make any sense. So this is what positioning will give you. It gives you smarter ways to make decisions about how to present your games in the right context. Ooh, next step. So we've done all of this positioning work, and now it's time to actually do something with it. So you're going to capture your positioning work in one place. This is called a positioning canvas. It's meant to be really easy, really digestible, that your whole team can take in, right? It's not meant to be a 100-page of mice and men endeavor. So for Panic at the Dungeon, it might look something like this. Panic at the Dungeon, we think it's a horror first and rhythm action second. There's competitive alternatives, unique attributes, values, and who cares a lot. Okay? And then you want to turn your positioning into a story. And I think I'm speaking to the right crowd here. So Panic at the Dungeon, and you can see the different ways that I phrase this depending on what I've decided to go lean in on first. So a horror game with rhythm action and co-op play, well, you might say survive the night with friends and dance or die. I feel like a voice actor would have done that better. I should have hired someone to come up here. So a rhythm action game with co-op horror, focus on getting the right moves or else. A co-op game with horror and rhythm action, sabotage or sync with your dance crew to survive, right? Slightly different vibes. Then you want to create a messaging document and share it with your team, so you have a focused and consistent way to communicate what your game is and what makes it special. What is a messaging document? Includes things like your target audience, tagline, short blurb, long blurb, features, values, basically everything that covers like every bit of marketing messaging you have, and that should cover you across things like writing for a pitch deck, writing for a press kit, writing for like being on Steam or itch.io or all of these other platforms. It makes sure that you are really consistent across all of these different touch points. And there you go. Thanks for listening and happy positioning. That was very tentative class. Thank you. So, yes, I am Najmah Salam. Hopefully I continue to be Najmah Salam. You can call me Naj. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn and Blue Sky if you have any questions. You can download the slides at a QR code here. And yes, and if anybody wants to give me quite a lot of money for making Panic at the Dungeon, do talk to me after this.
So
We have time? Oh, brilliant. Yes, we have time for questions. Does anybody want to ask me any questions about positioning or give me money for making Panic at the Dungeon?
When you see others doing positioning, what do people get wrong most often?
Oh, that's a great point. I think it's not taking into account the context that the positioning should happen in. So people might say, and also being too generic with it, because the amount of times where I've seen games say, we're a cozy game, it's Ghibli-esque. You know, it really doesn't tell you enough information. So I think when you're specific, push it more, be more specific, because I think people are often scared of scaring away people, you know, and I think actually the more targeted, the more niche and more focused you can get, the better.
Hi, thank you. You had a slide about getting impression of, oh, I never saw like something like this. But how far can it go? Because sometimes you can get off the limit and, I don't know, scare people. So, oh, it's something, adventure game, but it's with dynamics and mechanics that it not fits. It's not for me or something like this. So how far you can go?
Yeah, that's what I was referring to earlier when I say leave behind all your preconceived notions about what your game is, because with a positioning exercise like this, you might think your game is an adventure game, but it actually is a different kind of game. And maybe if you're getting that kind of feedback, maybe that's also letting you know that actually we should be going to a slightly different audience than we thought. Right, so I think, yeah, letting go of that baggage is really important for when you go through this process. Yeah. You.
Oh, sorry, just one question up here.
All right, let me bring the mic to you.
I thought the letting go of your baggage statement was interesting, partly because in the reality of a studio, often that's quite a complex topic, and often there's quite a lot that is the game, and if you try to change things late or even, you know, a quarter into your production, you're going to create issues within the game design. So my question is, could you speak a little bit more about that? I almost imagine there could be a whole talk in that, so that's a really interesting topic.
Yeah, I think if I've got your question right, you're saying that things change a lot in a game studio, and there's often a lot of baggage that comes with a game, and it can be hard to let go of that baggage. Just for
It could be entrenched.
Yes.
Once design is entrenched, you can't, there's certain things you don't want to shift that might be too fundamental or
yeah.
So how do you fit the needs of your process and the needs of the studio?
Yeah, I think this process should always follow the design. The design always comes first, the completion of the game comes first, and this should always come second. That being said, I think once you've done the positioning exercise once, it doesn't mean you can't do it again. I absolutely recommend checking in maybe every 6 months, especially in the beginnings of a game's journey out there as well. You might want to do this exercise right before you launch and a little bit of time after you've launched, because there might be some things people gravitate towards that you weren't expecting as well. So yeah, I think ultimately this process should serve design and not, you know, like make it rigid around it. Hopefully that answers your question.
Hey,
Hi.
so the more you the more indie your game is, the more likely that your ideal player is just going to be you. And in that case, do you think there should be consolidations made to separate you from the ideal player you're trying to target? Or should you perhaps lean more into it? Because ultimately, you know the most what you want out of a game that's meant for someone like you.
Yeah, I think again that's where letting go of baggage comes into play, because part of that baggage is what you think your player is, right? So there's two things here. Like one, if you're finding that your player base is super, super niche, like there's like 10 people in the entire world that love your game, that's fine. But if you want to sell loads of your game, that's a problem, But as an artistic endeavor, yeah, brilliant. I think it's really important to park at the door before you go into marketing what your understanding of what the player is. That's what I would say to that. I think ultimately all of that is about observation, really like actively listening to the people who are playing your game. Yeah.
And I think we've got time for maybe one more question.
Yeah, one
if
more
you're happy with that.
question. Okay, brilliant.
I haven't had a chance to give anybody over here the mic. Would anybody over here have a question?
Hi. So I was wondering, this is maybe too specific. When you're doing the, trying to reach out to people to do collaborations with or to stream each other's games or, say, reviewers, how did you go about finding them for things like the Ouroboros Express and other things you've worked on?
Oh, so for the Ouroboros Express, it was really easy. We looked for other games that were also free. And people with equally no money. But I think normally what you would do is you would look at games that have a very similar genre, right? Like very similar overlaps. And that's pretty easy, especially on something like Steam, where you can take a look at the tags as well. And you can even look at the design identity of the Steam capsule. There's like usually some sort of like visual cues as to what kind of game this is, right? A horror game is going to look very different to a horse girl visual novel game. So I think, I think it's really ultimately about making a list of all of the games that look very similar to yours and trying to reach out to people and making a very organized spreadsheet and have somebody very personable do that work for you. All right.
Thank you very much. Please
Thank
join
you
me
so
in
much,
thanking
everyone.
Najmah Salam.